Red Queen controlled everything, the zombie hordes were everywhere, and the lickers were horrifying. Everything on the screen was shocking. Moreover, this movie made the viewers feel like they were personally in the scene, making them worry about getting hurt and subsequently becoming an ugly monster like the zombies. As the story progressed, Lanyon noticed that not only was the plot exhilarating, the swift combat and the final battle against the lickers were amazingly nerve-wracking as well. The more she watched, the more shocked she became. How did the author do it? She was astonished. This game is such a unique novelty. It amazed her. She never thought something like this existed in this world. It was beyond her wildest imagination. She finally believed that the customers weren't duped into coming here. What the shop offered was more than enough to attract all these people. Is what we saw real? Nan and Ming-Shi finished the movie at the same time. Although her expression was much calmer than Lanyon's, a hint of very visible amazement could still be detected if people observed her closely. Who knows? Maybe it happened in a faraway land, or perhaps it's just a story, Fan Ki answered casually. Really, Nan and Ming-Shi could feel that her body was changing. For example, she felt like she could better control her body and even gained knowledge of combat techniques. Although her warrior ki didn't improve, if she were to engage in combat, she would be better than she was before. Fan Ki shook his head. It's called a movie. A movie. She carefully pondered the meaning behind this word. Is there anything else? Lanyon couldn't help but ask, what is the game you were talking about before? I remember you accusing me of being manipulative. You said I tricked and bewitched my customers. You also said that I hired these people to act as customers in my shop. Fan Ki looked at her and said with a smile on his face. Song King Fong and the others also stared at her. Her ignorance was more obvious than ever. If there were a crack in the floor, she really wanted to crawl into it. Lanyon felt extremely awkward and embarrassed. Did I say that this shop was tricking and bewitching its customers? Before, she was looking at these warriors and rich young men as if they were stupid. But now she felt like the stupid one. I admit that I underestimated your shop. She looked at Fan Ki, feeling like she was going to burst into tears. She finally understood what Fan Ki meant by ignorance is bliss. Fan Ki laughed before standing up and teaching them how to play the game. 4 hours later, what? We can only play for 6 hours. Lanyon immediately stood up from her seat and stared at Fan Ki with wide-open eyes. No, she screamed, I have to at least uncover the mystery behind the Book of Curses. The people around her couldn't help but laugh. The owner has never changed his rules for anyone. Oh yeah, she questioned as she took out a bunch of crystals and stuffed them into Fan Ki's hand. She demanded, what do you think? I'll pay you 10 times the original price. 10 times. The highest offer to date was from Song King Fong, and it was only 5 times the original price. Did she just offer him 10 times the price? 20 crystals for an hour. A couple of customers looked at the crystals and swallowed their saliva. Talk about steep prices. Fan Ki looked down at the crystals in his hands and hesitated. If the system allowed him to do so, he really wanted to run away with all that money. Sadly, the system didn't even respond this time around. I'm sorry, Fan Ki gave her the crystals back unwillingly and said righteously, everyone has to follow the rules at my shop. Is he an idiot? Why wouldn't he take the crystals? A single player could play for several days with 20 crystals. He really doesn't want it. Then how much do you think we should give you? Nalan Mingchu asked. Her tone was icy and sounded impatient. It felt like she wasn't in the mood to negotiate with Fang Qi. 1,000 times the original price? Or 10,000 times? Fang Qi's expression remained calm. It doesn't matter how much you give me. Rules are rules, and I won't bend them for anyone. The owner sure is a rule-abiding person, the man with the mustache said as he smoothed out his facial hair. He was relieved after seeing how Fang Qi followed his own rules. It meant that no one could get their hands on these computers. Wushan and the others, who were originally unhappy about the time limit, felt much better upon hearing Fang Qi reject someone who offered him 10 times the original price. Song Qingfan thought back at his own bitter experience and couldn't help but gloat in his mind. We tried the same thing a long time ago. Are you really not going to let us play? Ling Yan felt like spitting out blood. She noticed that she couldn't stop playing. However, she couldn't play anymore. If she didn't just witness how powerful the owner was, Ling Yan would want to kill him. She thought Fang Qi was a sly scammer. But now, she realized that he was an honest business person. How could someone not be moved by money? If he is a scammer, then everyone else would also be a scammer. I really want to keep playing. Ling Yan stomped hard on the floor. Can't you accommodate us? No. You're doing this on purpose. Ling Yan glared at Fang Qi murderously, but he just ignored her. After a while, Nalan Mingchu finally said, let's go. Feeling embarrassed, Ling Yan didn't want to let up. But I really want to keep playing. Ah, miss. Before she could react, Nalan Mingchu had left the internet cafe. Ling Yan had no choice but to follow her. Ling Yan's expression was complicated as she walked out unwillingly. Ms. Nalan, I think this shop isn't what we thought it was. Why didn't that world look fake to me? It was so weird. The zombies, guns, and virus all seemed so real. Oh, and I feel like I learned a lot of combat skills. Oh, and I think my skills improved. I wonder what happens afterward, I'm so curious. The owner is awful. I can't believe that he won't let us keep playing. I really want to teach him a lesson. I really want to go back and play. Ling Yan blabbed on and on and on. In the end, Nalan Mingchu turned around. Her expression was different than it used to be. She said softly, let's come again tomorrow. Ayanshan Tavern. To some extent, what happened to Xiao Yul affected them as well. Right now, all they cared about was Xiao Yul and the 3 mysterious lightning strikes in Fang Qi's shop. The owner's so brave. Blackie shuddered as he recalled what happened. I can't believe that he kicked Xiao Yul out of his shop. I wonder if anything bad will happen because of this, Liang Shi sighed. Bad? Blackie laughed. You think the owner was looking for trouble? He didn't even take them seriously. Li Qian picked up his cup and toasted to Liang Shi with a bitter smile on his face. I'm glad you stopped me back then, or else... Then, he shook his head and drank all the wine in his cup. Wushan laughed loudly. That's not important, it has nothing to do with us. All we have to do is play the game. I'm impressed by the owner's adherence to his rules. Everyone is, Li Qian replied, smiling awkwardly. They had to admit that the movie version of Resident Evil 1 brought more shock to them than the game did. The large zombie horde, the dismembering scene by the lasers, and the messy city at the very end all left deep impressions in their minds. Those who had never seen storylines like this before were all shocked beyond words. On the other hand, everyone knew that watching a movie could help with the improvement of one's combat skills. Although the improvements weren't continuous and sustainable like the improvement from the game, it was still visible. Some even wondered, is this really virtual? The combat, weapons, and everything in the game seems real. Is it a record of a war somewhere that we don't know about? Lin Jian Academy. After the movie version came out, the students had more to talk about in their daily conversations. Most of the players were from the Lin Jian Academy, so they would talk about Resident Evil on their way to the school. Of course, there were also players who liked to play pranks on others. After his martial arts techniques class, Song Qingfeng headed home around sunset. There was a secluded tree-lined trail from the martial arts field to the gates of the academy. Because of its location, no one trimmed this area. Therefore, the branches and leaves of the tung trees intertwined and created a giant, green-arched passage. The thick leaves stopped the sunlight from seeping through, so the trail was dark. Suddenly, Song Qingfeng noticed two people standing under a tree in front of him. The two people were wearing ragged clothes and headed towards him slowly. There wasn't enough light, and their heads were down, so Song Qingfeng couldn't see their faces clearly. He instinctively felt like something was wrong. He asked curiously, "What are you doing?" Suddenly, the two of them looked up and showed their rotten faces. Then, they growled and charged at Song Qingfeng. Zombies? Song Qingfeng was immediately terrified. How could there be zombies in the real world? By the time he came back to his senses, the two zombies had jumped before him. One of them even grabbed his arm. Song Qingfeng instinctively pulled back his arm but failed. He looked down and noticed that the way the zombie grabbed him was familiar. Kina 1, how could zombies know the Kina techniques? Song Qingfeng's expression froze upon realizing what was happening. Then, he quickly kicked forward, sending the two zombies into the air. The zombies immediately cried out in pain, "Ouch, young Master Song, can't you be gentler? I thought we were friends," another voice sounded. The zombies were actually Lin Xiao and Chulao. "What the hell are you two up to?" Song Qingfeng glared at them. "I didn't use much warrior ki. Get up." Lin Xiao laughed as he got up from the ground and took the mask-like item off his face. "What do you think? Our zombie masks look lifelike, don't they?" Chulao laughed. "We made them in a rush. If you look closely, it's a little rough around the edges." Song Qingfeng was so mad that he burst out laughing. "You guys are hilarious. I can't believe that you would dress up as zombies." "Don't tell others that I know you, okay?" What do you think, young Master Song? Would you like to join our zombie army? Shulawal patted Song King Fawn's shoulder and winked at him. Ah, Song King Fawn glanced at them in disdain. It doesn't suit my status. Did you think that I would stoop to your level? What's the problem? No one can recognize you with a mask on. Lin Shao grabbed his arm and pulled him aside. Suddenly, a few people appeared at the end of the road. Isn't that 11 Key and his friends? He quickly took out a zombie mask and handed it to Song King Fawn. Hurry up and put it on. They should face the horror of being jump-scared by zombies. 11 Key, 11 Xiaoyan, Wang Gangyuan, and a few other students were walking down the path while discussing the lightning punishment that happened at the Origins Internet Club today, as well as Resident Evil. Suddenly, they saw a lifeless figure standing there with his back facing them. Under the big tree was another person, hunched on the ground. Then, they noticed the third person lying down before them. Is he hurt? Curious, 11 Key walked up and patted the back of the man who was lying on the ground. That man slowly turned around, revealing his rotten face. Ah! A shriek erupted. Zombie! Zombie! 11 Key pulled his hands back as if he had been electrocuted. If he were injured by zombies, even a little, he would be infected. There weren't any blood serums in this world that he could use as antidotes. Then, the dead body on the ground slowly got up. The man on the side of the road turned around as well. It was another rotten zombie. The three zombies growled before charging towards the people in front of them. Although they've killed quite a few zombies in the game, they've never seen anything like this in real life. Moreover, 11 Xiaoyan's scream scared them all, causing 11 Key to grab his sister by the wrist and run off almost immediately. Wang Gangyuan and the others were blanking out when they noticed that 11 Key had run away. Therefore, they turned around and dashed away without hesitation. Ha ha ha. The three zombies all laughed until their stomachs hurt. Quiet down. More people are coming. After 11 Key ran away with his friends, a few others walked toward them. Get ready, get ready. Song King Fawn felt like crying. He realized that he had been roped into their shenanigans and couldn't get out. That night, a rumor spread at the Lin Jian Academy. Apparently, there were zombies on the path between the martial arts field and the gates of the academy. Fang Qi finally heard news about the neighboring shop. But sadly, it wasn't good news. Qi, are you in a hurry to use the shop? Auntie Wang knew that a lot of people visited Fang Qi's shop. Although she asked that question, she already knew the answer to it. I don't know why. No one wanted that shop for the longest time, but someone suddenly bought it. It's okay, Fang Qi replied. Thank you, Auntie Wang. Don't thank me, Auntie Wang said apologetically. I didn't help much. Fang Qi felt confused upon returning to his shop. Something was definitely up. Who in the world bought that shop at a time like this? As he racked his brain for an answer, a man wearing a black robe came into his shop. You are. Fang Qi was just about to ask if this man was a new customer introduced by someone when he took out a letter from his inner pocket. Are you Mr. Fang Qi? The man in black handed him the letter. My master asked me to give this to you. Your master? Fang Qi was confused as he took the letter. Then, he suddenly thought of the correlation between this letter and the neighboring shop. Thank your master for me, will you? Fang Qi opened the letter and read it. I would like to treat Mr. Fang to tea tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. See you on the 3rd floor of the Winter Moon Pavilion. He stood outside his shop and looked into the sky, without a speck of emotion on his face. I guess some people just don't know when to give up. Fang Qi only got to play for 2 to 3 hours yesterday before closing. Today, he was busy the entire day and didn't get the chance to even touch a computer. He used to have 20-ish customers. But now, he had more than 30. Fang Qi looked at the number of movie tickets sold, 32 tickets. These tickets couldn't be rebought. This meant that he needed 18 or more new customers at his internet cafe to sell 50 tickets. Only then would he complete his task. Yet, the only thing he cared about was the size of his shop. The internet cafe was extremely busy and full all the time. He really needed more space. The next morning at the Winter Moon Pavilion, only those with enough status could go up to the 3rd floor. Those who came here were either dignified cultivators, elegant aristocrats, or highly respected warriors with spiritual artifacts on their backs. Fang Qi had seen people like that before. Even if they limited their warrior ki, others could still feel the great extent of their powers. When Fang Qi headed upstairs, 2 young men in blue passed by him. The young men weren't as well built as warriors, but their eyes emitted an icy and powerful light. Their bodies gave off a unique sense of freedom and special auras. Without a doubt, they were both cultivators who were powerful. I heard Xiao Yu was beaten up yesterday. I think so, at a shop called Origins. His grandfather used to hold such high power, but Xiao Yu sure is useless. He couldn't even win against an ordinary civilian. I can't believe he still calls himself a cultivator. Exactly, he even contacted Xiufei. Xiufei, the Juan River Realm cultivator. It's just a small shop, why is he making it into such a big deal? The 2 cultivators discussed amongst themselves as they walked upstairs. Fang Qi heard them and furrowed his eyebrows. Are you Mr. Fang Qi? As soon as he arrived upstairs, a pretty woman in red walked up and greeted him. This woman also seemed to have abundant ki. Clearly, anyone who was on the 3rd level was not a commoner, including the waiters and waitresses. Fang Qi nodded his head slightly. Please come with me. Then, Fang Qi followed her to a private room, located at the northern end of the restaurant. Its location was obviously separated from the other rooms, clearly depicting the high status and prestige of whoever invited Fang Qi. The hallway of the private room was guarded by 4 people, and they looked at Fang Qi indifferently with a slight hint of arrogance. The truth was, no one understood why the person in the private room would invite such an ordinary-looking young man over for tea. The private room was spacious and could fit at least 8 tables. However, there was only one table beside the window, from where one could see the countless carriages on the roads of Jiuhua City. The utensils on the table, as well as the cups, plates, and bowls, were all meticulously made of silver and extremely valuable. Steam rose from the table as all sorts of delicate dishes were placed on it. The person who invited Fang Qi seemed sure that he would arrive on time. A girl wearing white sat on the east side of the table. Her hair was neatly organized into a bun, and she was an elegant beauty. Fang Qi could only see her profile. She was beautiful and charming. She sat beside the window and looked out into the sky as if she were an alluring sculpture made of ice. Her gaze landed on the crowd of people outside. It felt like only by looking at them would her icy expression show a hint of warmth. Behind her stood a girl in black. She was beautiful and refined, but also emitted a valiant aura. Your name is Lanyon, right? Fang Ti sat down and asked the girl in black, confirming the identity of the girl in white. Ms. Nalan, I didn't think you would be interested in a tiny shop on a secluded street. That depends on the shop. Nalan Mingshu finally turned her head and looked at the wine cups before her. Lanyon slowly filled them up. This is Pear Blossom wine, a GIA specialty. It's extremely smooth, and it can help you sleep better and calm your nerves. It's also good for your cultivation, Nalan Mingshu said as Lanyon handed a cup to Fang Ti. After seeing your shop yesterday, I've noticed that it really is a magical little place. Fang Ti looked at the amber-colored liquid in his cup and laughed. Ms. Nalan, I'm going to assume that you didn't invite me here to just drink, right? Lanyon took out a stack of paper and placed them before Fang Ti. These are the deeds to all the shops on Street 103 East. What do you mean? Fang Ti froze upon realizing what they did. Don't tell me that you bought the entire street. It's just a little gift, Nalan Mingshu said gently. It's for you, Mr. Fang. What do you want, Ms. Nalan? Fang Ti laughed. Her tone was emotionless. I've never seen a shop as magical as yours, Mr. Fang. You are a warrior, but you didn't have any fortuitous experiences in the last 16 years. Therefore, it doesn't seem possible for you to be the one that created the special items in your shop, let alone possess lightning techniques, the most difficult type of cultivation technique. However, not only did I see those special items in your shop yesterday, I also saw the lightning technique 3 times in a row. Therefore, I guessed that the spiritual artifacts called computers were created by one or even a group of cultivators. Mr. Fang, you're just their agent. Am I right? Fang Ti froze for a second. Your analysis is very thorough. But you need to be more imaginative, he added in his head. The difference between normal people and cultivators are like the heaven and the earth. That's how big the difference is. She paused for a second before continuing. The cultivators behind you must be extremely confident to be able to show these items to the world. But they asked you, Mr. Fan, to be the owner of the shop that offers the items they created because their identities cannot be revealed to the rest of the world, right? Or do they not want people to know that they exist? Nalan Mingshu asked. Either way, these people are way out of your league, but they trust you enough to give you all their items. That means they want something from you. As long as they do, we can negotiate. You only need one night to perfectly investigate and analyze my situation. Fang Ti laughed. Ms. Nalan, should I praise you? It's nothing. Nalan Mingshu sipped the pear blossom wine to warm up her throat. Her snowy skin reddened a little as if a flower had bloomed in the depths of winter, making her look more beautiful than ever. Her tone was still icy and a little lazy. The truth is, I went to your shop after doing my research. She began looking into the Origins Internet Club as soon as she heard about it. That was why she went yesterday and not the day before. So, Mr. Fan, may I ask if the cultivators behind you want to work for the Nalan family? Upon seeing Fang Ti's displeased expression, she added, don't reject my offer just yet. You should know that what happened with Xiao Yulv isn't the end of it. The cultivators behind you can't show themselves and help you. I'm not looking down on you, but with your power, you won't be able to deal with him by yourself. With the Nalan family's support, however, I can promise you that no one will have the courage to cause trouble for you. What she wanted was clear. She wanted Fan Ke's little shop for herself. Never once did she give up on that idea. Fan Ke was displeased. You went through this much trouble of getting me out of my shop just for this. Your analysis is right, he said with a smile, but allow me to be blunt. The Nalan family is not qualified enough. Do you know what the name Nalan means in Jihwa City and the Jiangnan region? Lanyan was furious. Even the members of the royal family have to treat the Nalan family with respect. Ms. Nalan is interested in your shop. You should be honored that she wants to give you an opportunity. Don't think too highly of yourself. You're good at exploiting small openings. Fan Ke laughed, but you're imagining things. If you think Xiao Yul can threaten me. You're insane. Lingyan placed her hand on the hilt of the sword by her waist. An icy light shone before Fan Ke's chest as the sword was drawn. Fan Ke, on the other hand, raised his cup and immediately smelled the sweet aroma of pear blossom wine. He didn't drink it yet, but he felt like he was floating in the air. Fan Ke nodded and drank the entire cup. He felt a warm current spread to his limbs. In addition, he felt a warm but weak energy reaching his dantian. Is this warrior Ke? It's a good wine. 1 cup of this wine was equivalent to 10 days of training. Rich people sure are different, Fan Ke muttered to himself. Then, he began eating as if no one else was present. He poured himself another cup of wine and never stopped chewing. Lingyan, who looked at Fan Ke and pointed at him with her sword, was shocked more and more. Forget about the food. The wine was a spiritual wine that Nalan Mingqiu used to test Fan Ke out. This wine was made from 1,000-year-old peach blossoms and made to complement the technique Nalan Mingqiu was cultivating. Although it wasn't poisonous, even Nalan Mingqiu could only drink a small cup every day. After that, she would have to take an elixir called the Congling Pill to consume and digest the energy in the wine. But now, Fan Ke already finished half a bottle. You're kidding me, right? Fan Ke was still drinking it. Even Nalan Mingqiu looked at him in shock as well. Is this young man a monster? She did her research. Fan Ke was just a normal warrior who hadn't had any unique encounters. How is he so powerful? She didn't know that after Fan Ke's body was strengthened by the T-virus, it was different than that of normal people. Even if he didn't use his warrior Ke, the spiritual wine still wasn't capable of getting him drunk. After he finished everything on the table, he rubbed his stomach and looked at Lingyan, who was still pointing her sword at him. Lingyan's body froze. She felt like Fan Ke wasn't an ordinary warrior. Instead, he seemed like a wild beast. Fan Ke stood up and walked up to Nalan Mingqiu, but she felt like she didn't have the courage to attack him. Nalan Mingqiu tensed up. She felt like she was no match for Fan Ke. How is that possible? He's only 16 years old, and he didn't even have that much warrior Ke. Fan Ke walked closer and closer to her. She had never been so close to anyone else. They were so close that she could feel the temperature of Fan Ke's body. She felt like a wild beast had approached her, sniffing its prey, making coolzy bumps appear all over her body. She had never been nervous her entire life, but she was now. She thought that she was well aware of who Fan Ke was. She thought she knew everything about him, even his embarrassing childhood stories. But now, everything had sunken into a black hole of mystery, leaving her with nothing but the unknown. The unknown was the most horrifying. The good thing was that feeling disappeared quickly. Soon, Fan Ki turned around and left. Before he did that, he said quietly, "Ms. Nalan, the food and wine were delicious, so I'll forgive you for testing me. Next time, the consequences might be too severe for you to handle." Then, he stood up from his seat and took a deed, subsequently placing some crystals on the table. "You should return the rest. I don't want to chase the neighbors away just so I can open a big internet cafe." He waved the deed in his hand and said, "Remember to give me the keys." The cultivator behind him must have given him a powerful protective spiritual artifact. Nalan Mingchu's expression froze. She was more logical than normal people. Therefore, she quickly calmed down because she didn't believe Fan Ki was that powerful. There was no way that a 16-year-old young man could become so powerful so fast. "I think I underestimated how much that person values him." Wait, right before Fan Ki left, Nalan Mingchu called out. Fan Ki paused by the door. He turned around to look at Nalan Mingchu, who quickly hid the shock in her eyes. He sneered. "What? You want me to stay?" Nalan Mingchu slowly calmed down. "If I go with you right now, there will be seats, right?" "Mr. Fang," Nalan Mingchu finished the pear blossom wine in her cup and said, "Even if we can't strike a deal, I can continue visiting your shop, right?" "Of course. Stop calling me Mr. Fan, though," Fan Ki added. "It sounds weird." "Okay, sir. I heard my friend at Linjai Academy say that the Wang House has morning class today." Fan Ki suddenly remembered what Wang Tai told him yesterday. "You're not going?" Today, Nalan Mingchu smiled. "I'm going to skip class." Fan Ki met someone who was crazier, yet also acted calmer than Song King-Fawn. Song King-Fawn and the others had class, so they didn't come this morning. Although Fan Ki didn't open his shop early, there weren't a lot of people waiting outside his shop compared with before. However, when Liangshi, Blackie, Wushan, and the others saw Fan Ki walk up with Nalan Mingchu and Lanyan, their brains went into immediate overdrive. "What's going on? It can't be." "Sir, you've disappointed us." "Sir, you." They glanced at each other before pointing at Fan Ki and Nalan Mingchu. The fact that Fan Ki and Nalan Mingchu came together in the morning left too much up for imagination. "Screw you, are you guys crazy? I just went out for breakfast. Why are you making it into such a big deal?" Fan Ki glanced at them. "You're too old to wait outside every morning, waiting to play on the computer. Are you guys elementary school students? You went out for breakfast." Blackie laughed in relief. "Sir, what's an elementary school student?" Liangshi rubbed his head in confusion. "They are a giant and horrifying group." The others still looked confused. "Are they scarier than zombies?" Lanyan asked innocently. "To some extent, they're much scarier than zombies," Fan Ki said profoundly. "I didn't know something like that existed." Just as she was wondering how scary the elementary school kids were, she suddenly realized something. "Wait, there are no more seats." Of course, all the seats were taken. Liangshi had a lot of warrior friends who slowly began joining him, creating a player group that could not be underestimated. More than 10 people came in the morning. Fan Ki unlocked the neighboring shop with keys Lanyan gave him. This This place used to be a blacksmith shop and was much bigger than Fang Qi thought. It had been empty for a long time, so there was dust everywhere. After Fang Qi threw away the trash and began tidying the place up, Nalan Mingqiu was truly a genius of the Linjian Academy. Even her gaming skills were better than most other students. She had a dagger in her hands as she walked through the hallways. It was obvious that after yesterday, she had gotten used to the game. She searched every corner of the mansion in an orderly fashion, so she didn't miss any details or items. As the daughter of the Nalan family, she was used to her relatives fighting and manipulating each other. However, this was the first time she experienced such a dangerous situation by herself. This trap-filled mansion gave her hands-on experience of what hopelessness and death felt like. The traps in the mansion were something that one could not be experienced in real life. The death of her character yesterday was caused by the fact that she didn't understand the game. But for a smart girl like her, dying once was the max. This was her first time experiencing the charm of the game. She was constantly protected by guards from her family, so she was never faced with real danger. Therefore, she never got to make decisions in battle. That wasn't what she wanted. Being able to play another character and seek adventure in another world without anyone protecting her gave her an exhilaration that she had never felt before. Especially since she felt like death was lingering in every corner. She felt like she had opened the door to another world. The dagger danced at the tip of her fingers like a silver butterfly. The others could tell that her mood was different than usual. She's really good. It's been so long, but she hasn't died yet, right? This mystery seems really easy for her. I heard that she started playing yesterday, but she's almost halfway through. She's catching up to Song King Fawn. Wow, that's really fast. Quickly, a group of players waiting for computers stood behind her, watching her play. Hey, not bad. Fang Qi came back to his shop and glanced over at Nalan Mingqiu. You passed the plant lab already? Of course, Lang Yan said proudly. Something like this isn't a challenge for Ms. Nalan. Suddenly, a group of cultivators wearing white shirts and yellow robes appeared outside Fang Qi's shop. Xiao Yul walked in the very front, along with another slightly chubby middle-aged man who was wearing a gold robe. This middle-aged man's eyes narrowed into a line, but it couldn't hide his icy gaze. He placed his hands behind his back and took each step slowly. Yet, the cultivators behind him had to jog to not fall behind. Soon, they arrived outside the door. The middle-aged man glanced up at the sign and asked, Yul, is this the shop that used the lightning technique to kick the three of you out yesterday? It is. Xiao Yul looked happy. This middle-aged man's name was Xu Fei. Although they belonged to the same generation, Xu Fei cultivated earlier and had already reached level 1 of the Juan River realm. Moreover, he was the head minister in Liayan Taoist Palace that was a part of the Wu Taoist Alliance. He possessed many powerful spiritual artifacts. Even the mayor had to be respectful towards him, let alone a small shop. He took out a light blue pearl from his brown pocket and said, the cultivator hidden in this shop is skilled in the lightning technique, but I have a lightning repellent bead. I can't believe that a commoner has the courage to bully you just because a cultivator has his back. Once I capture him, you can do whatever you want to him. Okay, Xiao Yul spat. I'm going to make him pay for what he did. Then, Xiao Yul turned around and said to the dozen or so cultivators from Liayan Taoist Palace, "Junior brothers, guard the door. Don't let him run away." Fan Qi quickly noticed the noise outside his shop. He watched as a short and chubby cultivator walked in with Xiao Yul as well as a couple other cultivators wearing white shirts and yellow robes. The chubby cultivator glanced around the room and demanded, "Who's the owner?" Fan Qi raised his eyebrows and looked at Xiao Yul, who was standing behind the chubby cultivator. "You're here to cause trouble again." Again, the customers at the internet cafe all looked toward the door. They were shocked to see so many cultivators inside and outside the shop. There are so many cultivators. It was rare for common warriors to see a cultivator, let alone so many. "Will the owner get in trouble?" Liang Shi asked, a little worried. He got Chuff away from the Liayan Taoist Palace to come. Song Qingfeng's expression was grim. "It's troublesome, all right." "Chuff Wei, is he a famous cultivator?" Li Qian asked, confused. "He's the head minister of Liayan Taoist Palace and the Juan River Realm cultivator." "What do you think?" Juan River Realm. Upon hearing these words, everyone in the shop gasped. Cultivators in the Juan River Realm were equivalent to master warriors on paper. However, their actual powers could be compared to ancestral warriors, if not more powerful. Because of that, the status of warriors who weren't in the ancestral warrior realm yet were significantly lower than that of the cultivators. "It's best if they could teach him a lesson, then Miss Nalin will be able to step up," Lane Yan fantasized evilly. Xiao Yul laughed aloud. "Today, senior brother Chu brought his lightning repellent bead to counter your lightning technique. Let's see how arrogant you are today." Then, he said to the 6 cultivators behind him, "Beat him up." Troublemakers detected. Lightning punishment activated. The cultivators beside Xiao Yul barely emitted their spiritual lights before a white light flashed before their eyes. Rumble. In a split second, the cultivators were thrown out, and their bodies were completely burned black. "Junior brother Xiao, come here." "I have the lightning repellent." Rumble. Before Chufwei could finish his sentence, they waved their hands and feet in the air as they jumped out of Fan Qi's shop. "Liangshi, that's the power of an ancestral warrior." "Song Qingfeng, what did I just say?" "Lingyan, freaking our asterisk tards," Fan Qi cursed as he pointed at the cultivators outside his door. "Get the hell away from my face." The cultivators outside immediately ran away. "Everything's good," Fan Qi waved his hands. "It's just a small situation." Ms. Nanan, Lane Yan's lips twitched as she said quietly, "Chufwei was kicked out." "Yeah, I saw what happened. Winton Moon Pavilion." Inside a unique-looking private room in the southern corner of the restaurant. The young man with the mustache took out a small, exquisite pipe from his inner pocket. He lit it up, and smoke immediately began to rise. He sucked on it and stared outside the window. Sitting across from him was a young man wearing a light blue robe. He had an unconstrained aura and was obviously more than just a commoner. "What are you looking at, Mr. Mew?" This cultivator treated this man with a mustache, who didn't look like a cultivator, with great respect. "It is quite sad." The young man smiled slightly. "I can't have the most precious thing in Jiahua City." The most precious thing. The cultivator in blue was extremely surprised. Have you ever heard of Resident Evil? The young man smiled. What is that? The cultivator asked, more surprised than ever. The young man with the mustache smiled. Hey Aran, before you became a cultivator, I reminded you to not be blinded by your status. Thank you for the reminder, sir. The young man in blue began to sweat. He may be a cultivator now, but he still didn't have the courage to be impetuous. In the eastern end of Geowa City is a small shop called Origins. It's an interesting place. The man with the mustache smiled and said, once I leave, you can go take a look. Mr. Mew, you're leaving? The cultivator in blue asked. The man with the mustache took a big whiff of his pipe. Yes, I need to head back to Jingxi. The cultivator in blue nodded. Sir, is this shop the same shop that kicked Xiao Yul out? The shop that kicked Xiao Yul out. The man with the mustache smiled in amusement. Word got out already. Indeed, all the cultivators in Geowa City had heard about what happened yesterday. Apparently, Xiao Yul led a bunch of people to cause trouble at that shop. Countless eyes, including the cultivators of the Orion Taoist Palace, watched as events unfolded. I can't believe Xiao Yul went with Xiufei and got thrown out in less than 3 minutes. They're so useless. A fat man wearing a baggy blue robe discussed what happened with the others in the Wind and Moon Pavilion. That Xiufei brought his lightning repellent bead, but I heard it didn't even work. How come an entertainment shop owned by a commoner be so powerful? A young man in black asked. Entertainment? The fat man in blue asked curiously. I thought they sold novels. Apparently, the novel is even better than Celestial Warrior. I think it's called Resident Evil. Bored, he waved his hand in the air. Men like us don't read stuff like that. Xiao Yul is probably the only person who's curious enough to check things out. We don't know, the young man in black said, but I need to see what kind of person is hiding in that little shop. Should we go check it out as well? Why should we? I heard a bunch of people are waiting outside. Xiao Yul was kicked out yesterday for causing trouble. Are we going to go cause trouble as well? The fat guy said helplessly and angrily. Let's go early morning tomorrow. I'm curious. What can be so attractive? The young man in black patted the table. People such as Song Qingfeng, Xu Zixin, and Wang Tai saw how Fang Qi passed the level, especially the second half of the game. They memorized how to solve some of the traps and mysteries. Therefore, they played the second half of the game faster than the others did. Song Qingfeng knew that he should focus on playing the game because he was about to pass it. Passing the game was such an exhilarating moment. Moreover, if he could pass today, he would be the first player at Origins Internet Club to pass Resident Evil, aside from Fang Qi. He would surpass everyone, even Nanan Mingqiu, 11 Qi, and Xu Zixin. He became incredibly excited at the thought of this. Indeed, Song Qingfeng was good at the game. Whether it was killing hunters with a dagger or fighting against the boss, his movements had become much swifter. This proved just how much his combat skills had improved. As a warrior, he noticed how efficient his new combat skills were. If he could combine them with his martial arts skills in real life, his combat ability would improve drastically. Nanan Mingqiu only just started. A light flashed in Song Qingfeng's eyes as he thought, this time, I might be able to surpass her. Song King-Fong and Chu Zixin encountered the hunters at the same time, but the latter was less experienced. Therefore, Chu Zixin fell behind and was now trying her best to catch up. Song King-Fong, filled with high spirits, kept advancing until he finally reached the room where the final boss resided. Is Song King-Fong going to pass the game? Everyone in the internet cafe turned their attention to him. It had been so long, and they had experienced so much. There was finally a player at the internet cafe who was about to pass the game. Upon seeing the big and tall tyrant slowly advancing toward him, Song King-Fong felt incredibly emotional. Is that the tyrant? Aside from Chu Zixin, who was going to pass the game soon as well, people like Liang Shi, 11 Key, and even Nalan Mingxu watched Song King-Fong as he began his final battle. Song King-Fong was imitating what Fang Qi did. First, he used his shotgun to lower the tyrant's HP in the first stage. Then, in the second stage, he dodged the tyrant's attacks while looking for opportunities to shoot it with his magnum revolver. Thanks to the movie version of Resident Evil 1, everyone's combat skills have improved significantly. Moreover, since Song King-Fong had been practicing every day, his combat skills were now amazing. He was quick and agile, devoid of any unnecessary movements. His attacks looked more skilled than that of Fang Qi's. He's so good. Upon seeing Song King-Fong's swift attacks, forcing the tyrant's health bar to slowly go down, the people around him began breathing nervously and rapidly. His shooting skills and combat techniques are much better than the owner's, right? A warrior laughed loudly. What? The owner plays as well? I've never seen him play. Confused, Nalan Mingxu asked. After all, people rarely saw Fang Qi play. The owner is the best at playing this game. He passed it a few days ago. Other players began discussing amongst themselves. The owner is also the first one to kill hunters with a dagger. If we didn't see him do it, we wouldn't think it was possible. The owner is the first one to think of ways to kill the final boss. He plays as well. Nalan Mingxu glanced over at Fang Qi, who was lying comfortably in his armchair. She frowned slightly. Ever since she came, she had never seen him play this game. To her surprise, he was a legend to the players here. First person to kill hunters with a dagger, first person to pass the game, record setter. These words proved that Fang Qi really did finish the game before anyone else did. Nalan Mingxu was confused. How did he pass the game so fast? He's about to pass the game. The others saw that Song King-Fong had seriously injured the tyrant, and the helicopter had arrived. As soon as the rocket launcher was thrown down, everything would be over. A lot of people had witnessed the power of the rocket launcher, and those who didn't see it had been informed by older players. Everyone knew that there was this weapon that was capable of exploding the tyrant into pieces. When the rocket launcher was thrown out of the helicopter, everyone looked at Song King-Fong's screen with anticipation. In the game, Song King-Fong's character had pulled the trigger. Swoop. As flames flared on the screen, the main character, Chris, left in the helicopter. Song King-Fong felt like screaming in joy. I finally passed the game. Song King-Fong stood up from his seat. He waved his fists in the air while staring at the screen. The story had finally ended, but he will forever remember and reminisce this thrilling and unforgettable experience. He thought back at what he had been through over the past few days. The excitement of getting new weapons, the exhilaration of defeating strong enemies, the happiness of discussing the plot with friends, the gratefulness he felt when he was saved by his teammates, and the hardships he experienced when faced with these mysterious events. He felt like a small caterpillar that lived in a weird world. He had smelled the scent of flowers, seen rainbows, and been through thick and thin. Finally, he spun into a cocoon and one day became a butterfly that went on to live a fulfilled and glorious life. When he finally finished the game, he was so moved that he felt like crying. You have reached your time limit for today. Please come again tomorrow. He looked around and glanced at his audience, who had surrounded him. This scene was forever remembered by them. They were all witnesses to what just happened. In the future, when Origins Internet Club had more than just Resident Evil 1 and this game got popular around the world, Song King Fawn thought back to when he first played. When talking about the owner and himself passing the game, he said, "That's the scene most worthy of reminiscing." Cheers and applauses suddenly sounded in the internet cafe.